Recording. Okay, so let's look at theories of corporate governance, right? So there are different theories that look at explaining how a corporation will and how a corporation should operate, right? And we need to understand what these theories are and what they are looking at, right? So this theory gives you an understanding of how different people or different groups are likely to behave in a corporate environment. That's what these theories of corporate governance are going to look at. And two core theories that we're going to look at are stewardship theory and agency theory. And that's what we looked at in our previous reading. So what is stewardship theory, right? This is where people in power is going to act for the benefit of those who are engaged with them. So when you say people of power or people in power, these are the agents or the stewards. So in this theory, if you're looking at the directors who are appointed, they are the ones who are the stewards, right? Or the agents rather. And what is that prime responsibility? They need to look after the resources that they have been trusted with. Right. On the other hand, what is agency theory? It's taking a alternative view to corporate governance. And this theory is assuming that people have a self-interested, egoist approach, right? So this is where we are looking at corporate governance through the relationship between agents and principals, right? So we're expecting the agents to act on behalf of the principal. Right, so this is where you need to see how it is different from stewardship theory, right? So it's differing because it's suggesting that the agent may not naturally act in the best interest of the principal, right? So the underlying assumption of agency theory is that all parties are utility maximizers, right? What does that necessarily mean? You have agents, you have principals, and the agents will pursue different goals from the principals, right? So these are the contradicting or feature between the two different types of theory, right? So there are two key assumptions, right, that the study guide lays down for us when it comes to agency theory, right? What are these assumptions? The first one is that all individuals are going to act in their own self-interest. So if that is the case, what is going to arise between the principals and the agents? If everyone's going to pursue their own goal, look at maximizing their own utility, what is going to exist between the principals and the agents?
Conflict of interest.
Absolutely, right? That's going to be an existence of conflict of interest, right? So the agents are going to act first in ways that will maximize their own personal circumstances. That's the first assumption. Second assumption is that agents are in a position of power and they have better access to and control to information and the ability to make a decision. Given this power that is that they are entitled to and that they can execute, right? This allows them to even expand their own interest, right? So something that we need to keep in mind, right? So with this, with these two different theories, and then stemming from agency theory, we have something called agency cost, right? Because we spoke about the fact that, two different parties, you have the principals and the agent pursuing their own goals, right? There's going to be certain costs and issues that's going to arise, right? So, for example, if you take a director, they are legally responsible to comply with certain regulations, right? And they also have to act in the best interest of the corporation, right? And with certain responsibilities that they take up, there's going to be certain agency issues and costs when agents try to act in a self-interested manner. So in this theory, we are going to look at three different agency costs, right? So these are monetary or monitoring cost rather, bonding costs, and costs related to residual loss, right? So monitoring cost. Let's look at what these three different types of costs are very quickly before we, look at the answers, right? So monitoring cost. Who do you think incurs the monitoring cost? That's so you have a principal, you have an agent, and one of these parties are going to incur this monitoring cost in a agency relationship. What do you Absolutely. The principal needs to monitor if the agent is doing what they are, what they are told to, or what they're responsible towards. That's going to better their interest, the principal's interest rather, right? So these certain monitoring costs are going to be compulsory, and this is related to, annual reporting, external auditing, right? These are mandatory for almost all corporations. And other monitoring costs are, purely discretionary, right? It is, completely up to the agency relationship. That is monetary. What is this bonding cost, right? These costs are incurred by the agent, right, to show or portray to the principal that they are congruent with the goal, right? So this may include things like, restricting the agent's behavior voluntarily, right? Or, looking at not consuming any benefits, right, which might actually go against the goal. All of this is portrayed, right? So that the principal is aware that they are goal congruent. And then we have something called the residual loss. And this is where no matter how good the monitoring costs or the monitoring has been, or this bonding cost, if that's also has been quite high and there's been effort from the agent's side, right? There can be decisions made by the agents that's not going to be in line with the principal's interests, right? So any loss, cost, or any underperformance arising from these decisions or actions by the agent is what we call a residual loss. And it is borne by the principals, right? And you have certain examples that has been given to us in the curriculum, which probably goes on to explain certain examples, right? Starting from excessive non-financial benefits, right, to empire building, and so on and so forth, right? With that said, let's look at the first question that we have. Miss Jackson is the MD of company XYZ. She reviews a preliminary financial report and then approaches Gary, the accountant who prepared the report. Miss Jackson requests that Gary improve the numbers so that she will get her bonus. Right? So I think most of you have given the correct answer. So let's look at why we look at how we arrived at the correct answer and how we are going to eliminate the incorrect ones, right? So the correct answer is A. Very, very straightforward. The director is acting in her own best interest, right? Which is very, very visible, very evident. The individual is acting in their own self-interest. B, the director's request to improve the numbers demonstrates goal congruence. Clearly not, right? So in agency theory, what we just spoke about, goal congruence occurs when there is an alignment between the interest of the agents and the interest of the principal. And in this case, clearly evident that Miss Jackson is the agent and the shareholder are the principals and the interests do not align, right? Let's look at option C, right? The director has the authority to make this request without considering the stakeholders. It is incorrect, right? What does agency theory look at? It attempts to align the interest of the stakeholders rather than setting one stakeholder's interest above the other. So C is also out of the picture. Then we have D. The director's interests align with the interest of other stakeholders because the company will show more profit, right? Clearly evident that the interests are not aligned, right? Because there would be more profit left for owners if a bonus was not paid, right? Clearly you see Miss Jackson trying to manipulate the numbers to get the bonus, right? But if the bonus was probably retained, right? Maybe they can look at saving on that, probably adding on to the reserves and then looking at using it for other projects in the future, which can even lead to value creation in the medium to long term. So clearly the interests are not aligning with the other stakeholders. Right. Question number 17. In the context of agency theory, which of the following is the best example of a bonding cost, right? So this is where I got slightly different answers from all of you. So I've got a C, I've got a D, and then I've got, I think that's about it, right? So I've got D and C, right? And the correct answer is C. So let's look at why D is not right. Okay, so in the context of agency theory, which of the following is a best example of bonding cost? A company's board of directors, we cannot say that's a cost, right? So that is out. A company's yearly financial statements, does it really tell us about a cost involved? Nothing is said. So of course, A and B is out, right? Non-compete agreement, right? That is correct because it is an example of a cost borne by the management. Why? It is an assurance that they are working in the shareholders' best interest. Generous set of prerequisites for directors and managers. Clearly, it is incorrect because when you're giving a generous set of prerequisites, if it's excessive management and prerequisite, it can lead to residual loss. right? So I hope that is clear, right? So some of the tips, right, that we can share for us to get through the examination is that we can look at eliminating the incorrect options, right? How can that be done? That can be done when we are confident with the technical aspects of the syllabus, right? And we understand what each area is targeting, right? Next one, which one of the following factors has been a key driver in the international demand for improved corporate governance? A, B, C, or D. So in this case, I think I've got one correct answer, right? So I think this is the confusion you guys probably had, whether it's C, whether C is correct, right? Global reporting initiatives. So can you tell me, GRI, does it look at corporate governance or improving corporate governance, or what does it really focus on? Sorry, I didn't catch you.
It's about sustainable reporting, right?
That's right. It looks at climate change. So it cannot be the key driver. The key driver here is increasing sophistication of shareholders, right? So that has been the major driver for improved corporate governance, right? Okay. Then we move on to the next two questions, right? Where I'm going to give you about, I think, a minute and a half, very, very straightforward, right? So I want you to tell me the answers in the chat box.